Cascade Mountains, like a wall across the state of Washington, have always presented a difficult barrier to travel and transportation between the whole United States and its seaports on Puget Sound. The Puget Sound country is not only an American gateway to the Orient, but what is locally far more important, the gateway of the Pacific Northwest to the markets of Eastern America and Europe. Thus, the conquest of the Cascades as an obstacle to the flow of commerce has been an active influence in the development of trade through Puget Sound. In 1892, the Great Northern Railway built its first line over the Cascades through Stevens Pass at an elevation of some 4,000 feet. In 1900, a tunnel a little over 2.5 miles long was built, and in 1909, a short portion of this line, including the tunnel, electrified. This expedient reduced the summit elevation by 677 feet and eliminated many of the tortuous curves and steep grades encountered on the old line. In 1912, with the ever-present desire to improve transportation facilities, studies were begun to choose a new route through the Cascades. The World War put an end to this activity until 1921, when location surveys for a new tunnel were begun. Finally, with a practical site for the tunnel agreed upon, construction was commenced about January 1st, 1926. This map shows the state of Washington, the Cascade Mountains, and the location of the new Cascade Tunnel. Scenic Washington is 97 miles by rail from Seattle, and Bern, 51 miles from Wenatchee. The new tunnel practically connects these two places, Scenic being near the west portal and Bern near the east. Surveying in country like this, with its deep snows, its storms and high winds, is very difficult and complicated work, especially when an underground line like the axis of a long tunnel is to be laid out. On this vertical section of the Cascades between Scenic and Bern, the axis of the new tunnel is represented by the dotted line. Speed in boring the tunnel was achieved by working at more than two faces at once. A shaft was sunk to the tunnel axis in the valley of Mill Creek, and work begun in both directions. In addition, a pioneer tunnel parallel to the main tunnel was started at the west portal and at Mill Creek at the same time as boring was begun on the main tunnel. The pioneer went ahead rapidly, and crosscuts to the main axis were made at intervals. Then, additional boring operations on the main tunnel could be started at advanced points. Thus, boring of the main tunnel was carried on simultaneously at many places on its axis. On October 20th, 1928, the last breakthrough was made and a continuous hole completed from east to west. Enlargement of the tunnel bore to full size and lining it with concrete were started long before the final breakthrough. And on December 24th, 1928, the tunnel was complete. Track laying was finished on January 6, 1929. And here we see what a section of the finished tunnel looks like. On January 12th, with appropriate ceremony, the new tunnel was officially open to traffic. An excited group enthusiastically speeded the first train into the tunnel for its 8-mile journey under the mountains. At the other portal, a second excited gathering awaited the arrival of that first train. It had taken 1,800 men 3 years to bore the hole for its passage. Cascade Division is electrified from Skykomish, west of the tunnel, to Wenatchee, 51 miles east. Here's the Limited pulling into Wenatchee. The electric locomotive over on the next track will replace the steam. The steam locomotive will pull off to one side and wait to take the next eastbound train back to Spokane. Now we'll see the electric locomotive backing down to pick up the long train. All set for its run over the Cascades, the train gets underway behind the smooth, quiet urge of the electric locomotive. The trip up through the mountains is a continuously unfolding panorama of scenic beauty. As our train approaches the new tunnel, we say goodbye to the east, for when daylight is reached on the other side, we shall be on the western slope, on our way down to the Pacific. The new tunnel has accomplished several important steps in making travel over the mountains easier. The old line between Scenic and Bern traced a winding route among the hills. By eliminating the great amount of track curvature encountered on the old route, the new tunnel has shortened the rail distance between Scenic and Bern by about 7 miles. At the same time, it has reduced the railroad summit 500 feet and eliminated 6 miles of snow sheds found on the old line. Snow sheds are costly structures and are a very expensive item of maintenance. A short trip along the old line gives a good idea of what snow sheds look like. The new tunnel, by putting the track underground, does away with the need for these protective structures and results in a large annual saving. This element of saving in snowshed maintenance was one of the determining factors in authorizing the new tunnel. Electricity, dynamite, and compressed air in skillful hands can do much to further human progress. Thus, the new tunnel and its associated mainline electrification have effected an ease of transportation between east and west, which is itself a monument to the initiative and scientific achievement of man. We can do no better than quote an excerpt from one of President Coolidge's messages. Speaking of the new Cascade Tunnel, he says, "This artery of transportation, the longest tunnel in the Western Hemisphere, is of importance not alone to the state of Washington, but to industry and agriculture generally, and indirectly to each and every one of us. My congratulations go to those who have made it possible."